friends. I'm Amy Morgan, the feature writer for the Marriage Initiative, and I am just delighted to introduce Dr. Randy Schroeder to you. He's a marriage and family counselor, pastor, author, and professor who served nearly 2.5 decades teaching pastors how to counsel at Concordia Theological Seminary. His books, Simple Habits for Marital Happiness and Simple Habits for Effective Parenting, have won 5 national awards between them. A popular radio show guest, Focus on the Family, counts one of his interviews about marriage among their best of 2022. Dr. Randy, thank you so much for being here.
I really appreciate you, Amy, and having me together. We can strengthen marriages.
Oh, absolutely. It's such a privilege. Well, you started as a seminary professor teaching pastors how to counsel, and you yourself have counseled thousands of couples. What did you learn?
Well, the big thing I learned is motivation is not sufficient for a healthy, happy marriage. It takes specific answers. It takes words, actions, guidelines that are exact to help couples understand the godly words and behaviors that make a difference in a happy marriage.
Yeah, you said that you think that maybe only 20% of couples are truly happy. That sounds so sad.
Well, it is sad. I hope I'm wrong. It's only my opinion, Amy, but we know the divorce rate is 50%, and I would say somewhere 75% to 80% of couples are unhappy, and it's not their fault because they just don't have knowledge in all 7 major areas of a relationship. And that's what my Christian marriage book's all about, is providing answers, specifics in the 7 major areas of marriage.
Well, I love that. I've read you have the book. You actually have a free study guide to go with the book. So I went through your study guide to look at it because there you have, is it what, 90 different habits kind of like arranged under 7 overall themes to really help people just learn some skills and learn some, even just words, even just simple words can make a big difference, right?
Oh, they can make a huge difference. Just avoiding the words "why button you," avoiding sarcasm, and you're correct. I have those 90 specific habits, and I'm glad, Amy, that you brought up the study guide because churches have in their small groups gone through my Christian marriage book, and then at the same time gone through the study guide, and I have questions to help small groups and spouses or couples just doing it together discuss these effective habits.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like we just mentioned, it's just a simple rephrasing. I think my favorite thing that I noticed as I looked through it was, will you please? Instead of take out the trash, or even because I might say it like, honey, would you take out the trash? But you said, will you is actually even better than would you? And let's talk about that. That's one of that was my favorite one that just like really.
That is absolutely essential. And the will you please is about, Amy, expectations. Yeah. Whenever a couple is unhappy, one spouse has not met an expectation, and unfortunately it's an unexpressed expectation.
Yeah.
And couples often think that they can use a sentence and just say, please do this, please do that. But over the course of a marriage, after years of being married, that feels like an order and a command and a demand. And you're right. And I actually read, Amy, a psychological study years ago that found will is softer on the ears than, as you said, would or could or can. And so it's a will you please do this, or will you please do that? And I can tell you, even though I'm a marriage expert, at times I'll say to my wife, Jenny, please do this.
Yeah.
And she'll smile at me and say, Randy, is that a please or is that a will you please? In fact, coincidentally, that just happened yesterday.
Oh, that's so funny.
I said something, please, and she smiled and said, Randy, is that a please? Because, again, it feels like an order and a command. And the big thing is couples need to make their expectations known. When I'm disappointed in my wife or she's disappointed in me, an expectation has not been met. And I would say, Amy, most of the time, it was not expressed. I forgot to let my wife know what I was expecting.
Yeah, that is just so, I love that the whole, and at least though, we both had a please in there.
Yes.
So that's the first step. We got the please, but then to even make that finesse it, to even make it more. I love that. And you said too, a lot of marriages kind of they start out, well as a newlywed, and then they become complacent. And that how to combat that complacency kind of falls under several of your different habit lists. But let's talk about some of the ways that that happens, and then ways that you suggest can change that.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up, Amy, because you're right. Complacency is the dreaded disease for every marriage. And so many spouses think once they put their name on the dotted line, they're done improving and growing. In fact, I stress that in one of my effective habits, the importance of growth, every day working at being a healthier Christian spouse. But yeah, there are four stay in love habits, Amy, that make a huge difference in a marriage. And I would suggest to your listeners, after 2 or 3 years of marriage, for example, so many couples start doing what I call the brother sister hug and kiss that happens at the holidays, where it's a brief hug, brief kiss. How are you doing? And that peck hug and kind of quick, peck kiss and quick hug becomes the norm. And that leads to an emotional disconnect. And so one of the effective habits I stress is a plain hug, lengthy hug. And I suggest, because I've had hundreds or thousands of wives say to me, Dr. Schroeder, thank you for this. No groping. Well, there's no touching.
Just a hug, just a nice hug
for an emotional connection, and then just a plain lingering kiss, not a passionate kiss. And that needs to happen every day. And one of the things I suggest, well, I just helped a couple yesterday for our first counseling session, is that to remove the power struggle, on the even dates, the wife initiate the lengthy hug, lingering kiss, and on the odd dates, the husband. So if it's not happening in the relationship, hopefully, Amy, it will become natural. But if it's not happened naturally, well, then the husband and wife are both responsible for making that connection. And the third, couples, when they're dating, look each other in the eyes, Amy, for hours and talk and talk and talk. After marriage, they become like trains passing in the night, where they just kind of glance at each other's eyes. There's not a staring down, but a heart connection, I call it, where you look into your spouse's eyes and just have casual coffee conversation. That needs to happen 10 minutes a day. If kids are in the home, because if the schedules are more busy, then it happens 3 days a week, hopefully. Should shoot for 7, but if a couple can do 3 days a week, that's, again, along with the lengthy hug, plain lingering kiss, that 10-minute eye-to-eye will help them keep their emotional connection and stay in love after the honeymoon.
Yeah, I mean, and those are simple things, but you just think about that. I have a son, and he's got the girlfriend, and I mean, I see how they just they can't sit close enough. Their eyes, and they're so cute. So you think about that, and then you think about that eye contact and making sure to incorporate that. And I like how you practically said, with the little kids, at least 3 days a week. Because I remember when the kids were little, that can be, especially little, that can be tough. But to talk about, okay, just 3 days a week at least you're doing it. You're planning those things. Tell us about the disagreement guidelines, because again, that's another thing I hadn't heard anywhere else. I thought that was such an important habit to get into.
I would suggest to your listeners, Amy, that may, I have that as chapter 6, the disagreement guidelines, but I would, if I revise my book, I'm going to put it at chapter 2, after apologizing and forgiving, because, and I asked the question, I've asked it thousands of times, what are your disagreement guidelines as a couple? And almost 100%, almost everyone says we don't have disagreement guidelines.
Yeah, what is that?
Yeah, and yet, whether it's my wife and I or you and your husband, we're going to have differing opinions. But the key is to keep it at a respectful level, looking for solutions. So I always suggest the terrific 3 big guidelines, Amy. And the first is to stay inside the 9s. Never have a serious discussion before 9 in the morning or after 9 at night. And I ask couples, I used to do this, and now it's just embarrassing to them, so I don't do it. But I would ask, when was the last time you had an argument or a fight? Was it before 9 in the morning or after 9 at night? Almost 100% of couples would say, yeah, it happened before 9 in the morning or after 9 at night. And so we don't have energy when we're not fully awake or just waking up, or we're tired at night to look for solutions. So what we do then is look for blame. And so my wife and I have been married 50 years. We still keep that guideline in mind, the 9 o'clock guideline. A second guideline, Amy, that I think is absolutely essential is to always, always be seated. Yeah. Again, I used to ask couples, the last time you had a fight or an argument, were one or both of you standing? Yeah. And almost 100% of the time, they kind of look surprised and say, yeah, you're right. One or both of us were standing. Standing is an intimidating posture. It's kind of a power position. Yeah. It's easy to yell when we're standing. So you and I, Amy, right now could yell and we would do a loud, good job, I guess you could say. But if we stood up, right, we would yell even louder. And so unbelievable. I probably, Amy, have had 400 or 500 couples say those two guidelines have saved their marriage from divorce, because they've started looking for solutions. They started planning their responses rather than reactive impulses, and stay inside the nines always makes a difference. And then the third, one of the terrific threes, is to have a soft startup. Yeah. What begins badly ends badly. What begins loudly, which many times for couples do, ends loudly. And one of the major predictors for divorce are harsh endings. So we absolutely in our marriage want to avoid harsh endings. And to do that, we have a soft startup. And the best way to do that is, I need your help. As Christians, we want to be helpful. We want to help others and help our spouse and help our marriage. And I've had so many spouses say that kind of was disarming. You know, when my spouse says to me, I need your help. Yeah. Now, they may not, you don't need to talk about it, Amy, right at that time. Maybe they're going to say, I don't have the energy right now. Let's do it tomorrow. But they'll stay inside the nines, sit down, and then that leads usually to a productive discussion and finding a solution to the hurt or disappointment that caused the I need your help soft startup.
I love that. I mean, that's kind of like the flip side of will you please?
Yes.
Just the words, I need your help. That's when I am going to be texting to several of my relatives. That's really such a great, those little things. I know you said that you would put these disagreement guidelines in chapter 2, but you said the apology was going to be chapter 1. Let's talk about that. Why would that be number 1? And
I usually have 3 I always suggest that's a great question, Amy. And I always suggest to couples that you don't really need to worry about your marriage when both spouses can apologize and both spouses forgive. And briefly, I'll just say forgiveness. Once a person forgives, it's not bringing up to their spouse's memory again that forgiven hurt or that forgiven disappointment. But my PhD dissertation, Amy, was on the benefits of apologizing and forgiving for a marriage. Wow. And I wrote 350 pages. Now, wow. To put I went through the whole Bible, read numerous books, numerous articles, but to or confirm my belief that that's the key to a marriage, apologizing and forgiving. And that's a tough one to do, because probably 98% of us never saw our moms and dads apologize to each other and forgive each other. But I had couples come in, evaluate their marriage, and then after they went through the apologizing, forgiving process, I told them the intricacies of the apologizing, forgiving process. I had them evaluate their marriage again. It was amazing, Amy. Couples that graded their marriage at F, almost every couple jumped 2 grades, generally speaking. They went from F to C. Couples that before they learned apologizing, forgiving, went from D to B. And couples that were a C went up to an A. I didn't have any B marriages that pastors referred couples to me come in. Yeah. But it's just that essential. And the reason we're going to heaven one day is the forgiveness of our sins through the blood of Jesus Christ. And so forgiveness glues us to God, and forgiveness glues our marriages together. And without apologizing and forgiving, and I always say it takes courage to apologize, humility to apologize, and courage to forgive. And that's hard. And if I could, Amy, would you care if I mentioned the 3 parts to apologize?
Please do. Yes.
Okay. Well, the first is to say, I'm sorry I hurt. And I think it's essential to use the word hurt. I'm sorry I hurt you by.
Okay.
And if it was words, it would be saying these words. If it was an action, I'm sorry I hurt you by doing this or doing that. And the second part is the most important. And it comes back to, Amy, what we started out with. Will you please?
Will you please?
Yep. It takes, again, humility to say, I'm sorry I hurt you by doing this or saying that. Will you please forgive me? And couples need to realize it's important not just to say, that's okay, no problem, whatever, I'm over it, but to actually use the forgive word and to say, I forgive you. Or if it was really a painful hurt or painful disappointment, to say, with God's help, I will work at forgiving you. Yeah. But to complete the whole circle, I call it, we need to use those 3 parts and always say, forgive. And forgiveness is not a feeling. It's an action that we just do. And hopefully, the feeling will eventually come around. But sometimes it can go on for a lifetime. If there's been adultery or an affair, it's going to be a process. And I explain that a little briefly in my Christian marriage book.
Yeah. Oh, that is so good. I've heard holding unforgiveness is like drinking the poison, expecting the other person to die. It just, all it does is hurts you. But of course, like you said, it can be easier said than done. And so you can say it and it's not done, but to say, with God's help, I will work on it. And then you have to actually do that.
Yeah. And I describe that more fully in chapter 1 of my Christian marriage book. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is critical. Again, my wife and I have been married 50 years, but we're going to have hiccups. Now, hiccups don't happen too frequently when we know the effective habits. We're all sinners, imperfect and flawed, going to have hiccups. And what kind of stops the hiccups is the apologizing and forgiving process.
Oh, I love it. And I'm glad. I'm going to mention the name of your book one more time: Simple Habits for Marital Happiness. So you've been very, I just want to make sure we get that in there. And another thing that you talk about is banishing sarcasm. I mean, that can seem so popular to be, the snark. I mean, it's on every TV show, every social media thing, but you really suggest couples eliminate from their discourse. Tell us why.
Well, in the Greek language, the word for sarcasm is tearing of flesh. Yeah. And we do not want to tear our spouse's flesh. And usually within the first or second counseling session, I will bring that up, that let's eliminate all sarcasm, because 90% of sarcasm is negative. And the other person's the butt of the joke. It amazes me, Amy, on a side note, and again, as you mentioned at the beginning, I've written Simple Habits for Effective Parenting, but I suggest to parents to stop being sarcastic with their children. Yeah. And it amazes me how quickly a child's self-worth and self-confidence and self-esteem rises when mom and dad stop being sarcastic. So sarcasm is a good definition. It's mask anger, where we're really jabbing somebody and saying, oh, I'm just teasing. Well, but weren't really teasing. It's putting them down. And I suggest to couples that sarcasm is a lot like any ice cream on it. Ice cream with vinegar on it. I'm going to get it right.
Ooh, yeah.
Well, I've never done that. Never would. You would not either, and your listeners wouldn't either. But no matter how good the ice cream tastes, the vinegar is going to make it taste horrible. And likewise, no matter how good sarcasm is, it's a jab, a slap, an emotional slap in the face. It's not going to taste good to the person who's receiving it.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of goes under your gentle words, creating life as your theme. But you had a refrain from the seas. Let's talk about that. Just ways that couples, as we're on the sarcasm area, that's just ways that couples tear each other down.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Amy, because to avoid the C's of criticism, correction, complaining, condemnation, uh, and you mentioned that Bible passage, Proverbs 15, gentle words create life, griping brings discouragement. And
Hmm.
griping can encompass all four of those C's. And so it's absolutely essential. Usually, when a marriage is troubled, one spouse is doing a lot of correcting, a lot of criticizing, and they're being a fault finder, not a good finder. And I think it's essential in our marriages that we be good finders and that we use the healthy C. The Bible says, be kind. And
Hmm.
the way to be kind is to compliment our spouse a lot. That's the C that the compliments need to far outweigh the corrections and the criticisms. And one thing, one suggestion, again, it's in my Christian marriage book, is the even odd guideline. When I think of even, Amy, I kind of think of even, smooth, calm, level. And so on an even date, there's couples are set a goal, both spouses, to not do any criticism, complaining, condemnation, correction,
Yeah.
only compliments. And so that gives, and on the odd dates, they shouldn't do it a ton, but if they feel they need to correct something or bring
Wait
something,
till the next day.
yeah, wait till the next day. But that gives their marriage 50% of their marriage life positive times together because they're avoiding the C's on those even dates.
Wow. That, I mean, again, that is so simple. You could just like look at your watch or your phone and go, oh, well, it's what is today. Today's the 19th. Today would be not that today would be not a criticizing day. No correction today.
Well, and hopefully your listeners, and I appreciate you reaffirming that, Amy, but hopefully your listeners are starting to realize that. And I've read numerous marriage books, Christian marriage books, and I've never seen marriage books that encompass so many effective habits that are specific. Like I just mentioned, the even odd guideline, the three parts: the apologizing, forgiving process, avoiding the C's, avoiding sarcasm, having disagreement guidelines. We need specifics. We need knowledge to have a healthy, happy marriage.
Yeah, and sometimes like just that, will you help me? Or that let's not talk about this after 9 o'clock at night, even on a weekend.
Yeah.
That just those little things could just save so much heartache and just start creating that positive culture in a marriage. You also nailed two of the other hot button topics: finances and in-laws. You have some practical tips there. Which one do you want to start with?
Well, let's start with in-laws. I think I always suggest, and let me kind of add something again. It's in my Christian marriage book. I kind of see four types of relationships, Amy. There are acquaintances, there's friends, there's good friends, there are close friends. It does not happen automatically that in-laws become good friends or close friends. In fact, sometimes in-laws may be at the friend or the acquaintance level. But and I kind of suggest that to take some of the pressure off
Yeah.
couples when they get married to recognize that it doesn't automatically again go to good friends or close friends. And so with in-laws, if someone's not breathing, we give them CPR. Well, if for an in-law relationship, that's not it, they're not breathing, but for an in-law relationship, it's important to CPR. Be courteous, be polite, and respectful.
Yeah.
They don't have to emotionally bond with their in-laws, but just like you and I could do, Amy, with strangers, we're going to be courteous, polite,
Yep.
and respectful,
Yep.
and to set those boundaries. And it's very important as well that if there's an issue going on between uh, a spouse and their parents, the natural child, adult child, deals with the natural parents. The in-law child does not speak to the other, to the in-law parents, and so that takes a lot of stress off as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, And then you mentioned, what was the other area that you wanted me to focus on?
Oh, it's in your book, the other one, another hot button issue, finances. And you
Oh,
actually had a really, I want you to talk about it, but then you actually had a really interesting observation. So we'll get
well,
to that one too.
I'm not sure I remember the observation, but I'll just say, yeah, what really is essential are the three Ds: disclose, discuss, decide. And tied to that, there's an approval limit. In businesses, they have an approval limit
Yeah.
above which they won't spend money unless they
Yeah.
check with the CEO or other
Get a sign off. Yeah.
sign off. And so I think in a marriage, there needs to be an approval limit. Now, I've had the limit be $10. If a spouse were to see something for 15, they would have to disclose that to their partner. They want to buy that. I've had it go up as high as 500, that a spouse could buy something less than 500 and not have to inform their partner. But every couple's different, that they set that approval limit. So let's say the approval limit is 50. A lot of couples set that. If one partner, one spouse saw something for $60, they would disclose to their spouse that, hey, I'd like to get this for $60. They would discuss together the pros, the cons. Is this a need? Is it a want? Does it fit within the budget? And then they would decide together, is that purchase okay? And that is just an essential guideline: disclose, discuss, decide, and the approval limit that has made a difference in hundreds, if not over 1,000 marriages that I've helped.
Yeah. No more hiding the Amazon packages on the front porch, right?
That's
Scooping
right.
in those Amazon packages before the husband gets home.
Yeah. I like your sense of humor, Amy.
Well, you said you see couples one place like they're spending more money than they realized, perhaps on their kids' travel sports or eating fast food because it's just so convenient if you're out. I know I remember when my boys were doing some of that, you just were eating on the run. Of course, they were hungry and you can't really pack enough snacks. I remember
No,
that.
no, that's true. And so what I suggest in that regard, Amy, is that once a year, maybe even twice a year, for 1 month, have a spiral notebook on the kitchen counter or the dresser in the bedroom. And every day, what is spent, a spouse would write down. Tuesday, August 19th, even if it's $1, I went to the gas station and got a Coke and spent $1. And so they do that for an entire month, both partners. It also helps them if a lot of spouses struggle with overspending.
Mm.
And kind of can have a compulsive spending addiction, really, where they have to spend to feel good about themselves. And
Yeah.
so, just writing all that down will give them a good idea of what their partner's spending and what they're spending as a couple. And as you mentioned, sports activities, I can't think of one couple specifically, but I've had numerous couples say similar statements that we thought we were spending $350 a month stopping after soccer practice or volleyball practice or show choir, whatever. And when we wrote it down, we discovered we were spending $800, $1,000 a month on fast food.
Yeah.
And we had no idea
Yeah.
until we wrote it down. And so I would encourage your listeners to do that once or twice a year. Just get a spiral notebook and write down daily what they each spend.
Yeah. Because I mean, I remember how, and especially, I mean, fast food can be fast, but it's not necessarily cheap. And you got a hungry teenager, and then you probably got the friend in the car,
Yeah.
and then the little brother, and all of a sudden you've spent way more than you just thought you were. And some of that's not really avoidable. Like I said, you can only pack so many snacks, but if you're on the same page about it and you're not upset about it and you talk together, right, about how you could minimize maybe.
Well, and so many couples, finances put stress on the marriage, this is one way, along with the three Ds, to hopefully de-stress the marriage, because a lot of research has said the two big issues that really create some severe marital heartache, one of them is finances.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would imagine that would be a great discussion to have using the guidelines with the will you help me at a right time.
Throw in the word please there, Amy. Will you please?
will you please help me
Yes,
look at this this fast food out of control budget seated eye to eye within the nines, and they would have a much better hope of coming to a positive solution, right?
exactly. And not de-stressing or not stressing out their marriage. Yes.
Yeah, with a soft out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to avoid those hiccups. Hopefully the hiccups are far apart. They happen more frequently when kids are at home, but that's the goal. And when spouses have these specific words, actions, and guidelines, habits, it makes a huge difference in every marriage.
Oh, that is just so great. And two, for those who do have the kids at home, you do have the simple habits for parents too.
Yes,
So what they've learned in their marriage, they can apply to their parenting. So,
exactly.
oh, Dr. Randy, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure speaking today with you.
Well, it was my privilege and honor to be with you, and I pray that our visit together, Amy, will be a terrific blessing for numerous marriages throughout the country and even throughout the world.
Oh, I join you in that prayer. And as always, marriage champions, if you'd like to learn more about Dr. Randy Schroeder and his simple habits, you can find him at marriageinitiative.org or marriageresources.org.